it's difficult for somebody that doesn't have experience with Bitcoin to work on Bitcoin UX.
Lugano's Plan B podcast presents Beauty, Design, and Marketing with Samson Mao, Aldert Greijdanus, and John Carvalho. Why are UX and UI so neglected in Bitcoin?
I'd say it's so often in Bitcoin because most Bitcoin projects are engineer-led, and so they're not designers themselves in the aesthetic sense. And so, of course, that's going to follow through with the applications. And also because of that being engineer-led, the features and user experience are more geared toward engineers and thus less in touch with what normal users might want out of their application.
Yeah, I would also say that in general, at least over the past 10 years, Bitcoin companies have been slightly underfunded, and the resources that were there were primarily used for technological process. And design has always been the little kid that got the least attention. But that has changed in the last few years, I believe. The industry is making Bitcoin more human, and it's good to see that. But I think the crypto industry had the lead there because they were simply able to print whatever funds they needed to hire good designers. So a tragedy of the commons, you could say.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, I guess the crypto wallets have focused more on that because their goal is to get money from retail. And you can't squeeze money out of retail if your UX is horrible, right? So they're directly incentivized to make it really functional and slick. But I think we're catching up. The biggest problem, I think, is that there's no clear design goal for most products in the Bitcoin space. We know we're all working on sound money, and if you think about it, Bitcoin's sort of like the back end, like a database, and then you have sort of a middle layer of kind of more database back-end infrastructure, and the last afterthought is sort of the front-facing, user-facing interface. But I think we're slowly getting there. But like for us with building Aqua, we have a very clear design goal, which is we want people to be able to easily access Bitcoin and Tether. And that's why it informs how we build a wallet. Like it is front and center, laid out very clearly that you can interact between these different things. So I think if other wallets have a more clear goal, then they'll have a better UX. But by and large, most Bitcoin wallets just want to be a Bitcoin wallet and have really cool Bitcoin tech. And if that's their goal, maybe they're hitting that goal, but that's not the goal that's going to reach the mass market, in my view.
How would you explain the thought process needed to create beautiful and easy to use brands and tools for Bitcoiners?
Yeah, if we want to lead by example, I think it's important to use a visionary design strategy instead of being very reactive to user feedback. You know, Steve Jobs also said once that people don't know what they want until they see it, essentially. And yeah, since we still have to pave the way in Bitcoin, there's a lot to still imagine. And it's our job to imagine a future that will be frictionless as possible and will provide the features and the benefits of Bitcoin in a way that is approachable for everyone.
I'd say, so my background, I'm CEO at Synonym, but my background was also in branding and design and marketing before Bitcoin. And so that's much different than where we started, how you talked about many Bitcoin projects are led by engineers. Well, our projects are led by somebody who actually comes from a design background. And so we automatically, just from that, have a little bit more, or a significant amount, probably more, weighting to the amount of resources and interest we're going to put into having a good design and user experience. So yeah, I think that's a big way that we approach it. And then we also have processes like within the company to where how we iterate, between the design team and myself, the design team and the outer team, etc.
Yeah, I think my background is similar to John. I'm marketing and IT systems, so I do know marketing and branding. So it's a bit of a difference, I think, when the organization is not engineering-led. And I think most Bitcoin wallets are engineering-led. Mm-hmm. So you might have some with okay UX and UI, but it's the exception. It's more the exception than the rule. But to kind of lead everyone forward, I think we have to show the importance of design to get market share. Because at the end of the day, I think everyone building a wallet or any product and service wants market share. And I would say Bitcoin wallets as a whole has not really reached mass market penetration yet. We're still far away from having 1 billion people in. So I think if we can be one of those that shows the path forward, like we focused on UX, we've got 1 billion users. So this is what you should focus on too. That might be a way to kind of bring things ahead.
Yeah, on the topic of reaching 1 billion users, our strategy there is like trying to utilize familiar language and making an experience that feels a bit similar to their general banking app by using terms like savings and spending. And this really helps to get them familiarized, and we hide a lot of the complexity and automate that. There's still a lot in there, like we allow users to hold their own keys. We have cryptographic key pairs. We have a Lightning node actually running on their phone. We have channel management, but all of that technical stuff does not need to be known by the user, by the end user. So we find a way to hide that complexity and only present the visual interaction layer.
Yeah. That's also something we do at Aqua. I think we're of the same mindset. We hide as much complexity as we can, but we try to give them that functionality. So you can swap, you can interact with other chains and move between Liquid and Lightning, but you don't need to understand how that works. So from the surface view, if you look at Aqua, you think, oh, that's a really simple wallet. It's actually super complicated behind the scenes on how we handle everything, and we make sure things don't fail. So that's actually a challenge for us to make it so simple.
Yeah, one of the biggest challenges, I think, as well, is trying to balance custodial Bitcoin and self-custodial Bitcoin, because there are downsides to each approach, and one of the biggest downsides to choosing a fully self-custodial route, empowering the user to hold their own money, is that it's super hard to reach the same level of frictionless experiences like Wallet of Satoshi offers or other competitors. And I think you guys are somewhere in the middle there. But yeah, it's hard to find that balance. Yeah.
Another thing also is like, we mentioned engineer-driven applications being different by, naturally because they're engineers and they have different priorities. But that doesn't mean you can't have the wallets have the features the engineers want and still have it also look better. We in BitKit we try to have advanced features behind advanced layers. So if you actually want to do channel management, you have those tools there. They're just not in your face in your first experience. They're going to be where you would look for them if you are an engineer, and you will find them.
What level of Bitcoin knowledge should a UX, UI, and marketing professional have to effectively collaborate with Bitcoin developers?
I'd say it's, marketing, so there's a difference obviously between marketing and user experience, but in general, it's difficult for somebody that doesn't have experience with Bitcoin to work on Bitcoin UX. There are tools and resources that exist now to try to onboard people into those things, like the Bitcoin design community has the Bitcoin design guide and websites, and there's the Saving Satoshi project. There's a lot of different ways to onboard people through Bitcoin and as designers and marketers as well. But it's not something that you're just going to be able to pick up and say, oh, I'm a great designer and now I work at a Bitcoin company making a Bitcoin wallet and I'm doing great. No, you're kind of starting over in some ways and probably not going to even get that job if somebody that had experience with Bitcoin also applied.
Yeah, you have to navigate the limitations that the Lightning network currently throws up. The walls that it throws up in terms of how frictionless we can make it. Of course, there are still some important steps to be taken there, and like splicing that is upcoming that will absolutely improve the UX on all fronts. But still, indeed, you cannot just throw any designer in there and expect them to create a UI for a Bitcoin wallet.
I think it's interesting. We're trying to do the same thing, like hide the complexity and make it accessible and deliver an experience on par with custodial wallets, but that's really hard, actually.
It's impossible, I would argue.
I think it's doable, but it's very hard.
What Bitcoin project do you think has the most beautiful and inspiring design that is not your own?
There are more, but the easiest one that comes to me that I remember is definitely the Umbrel stuff. The Umbrel team, the Umbrel application, the Umbrel OS. They're very solid with their design, and I definitely respect what they do, and they pay attention to quality.
Yeah, I was going to mention that as well, but yeah, I think also what Ledger or Trezor are doing, or with the new BitKey from Luck, Live. Yeah, that's a step forward in terms of hardware design, and also in terms of aesthetics. Sexy products are also very important.
Kraken does a good job too.
Yeah, Kraken is pretty good. However, you do see some trade-offs happening there, like also with the hardware wallet, the BitKey. It doesn't have any screen, which for an end user forces you to trust more parts of the transaction process. And that's kind of problematic, you could argue.
If you guys had said Aqua, I would have said Synonym, but yeah, that ship has sailed.
But the listener would be tortured by that.
Yeah. I would say I like Cash App from Jack's company.
Oh, yeah.
And I would say our goal is to be a non-custodial Cash App, to deliver that level of slickness and ease of use, because it's basically perfect in my view.
Absolutely.
It's just that it's custodial. So
we should have said Revolut in that example.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't know that I would consider Cash App to be a Bitcoin project, but I guess technically they support it, so you can say that.
Yeah.
But they existed before all this.
True.
So, I would.
Well, I mean, it's Jack Dorsey. He does a lot of stuff for Bitcoin. He does the what is it, the BitKey?
I think
Yeah,
so.
so
Yeah.
I think it's like a Bitcoin company, kind of.